Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Holo and today we're talking Black Myth Wukong, the upcoming Souls-like style game coming from a small Chinese dev team called Game Science, who blew us all away when they randomly dropped this really in-depth gameplay trailer to announce their game, which happened 3 years ago at this point. Many were confused and impressed by the quality and potential of the game. 10 million people watched that original IGN trailer, but I had my own concerns with the gameplay, especially after the second trailer they revealed. We're going to look at the history of the game, leading up to the actual release date and a recent demo that people have actually got to play. So let's start from the beginning, that original trailer 3 years back. We kick things off by flying through the air as a bug in a short stealth section. Wukong has that ability to transform. Now, to my understanding, I had it explained to me by a friend. In the world of Wukong, magic's more of a common thing. Transformation magic, though, isn't really as impressive, more of a party trick. Wukong seems to go against that, transforming into countless creatures, kind of maximizing the concept. You might imagine Wukong as a monkey that's got a big quarterstaff that is able to transform and extend. That's kind of an extension of his magic. However, it's far from his only weapon. Watching that original gameplay trailer, we watch as Wukong defeats enemy after enemy using kind of classic Soulsy combat with some magic to it. Evading, parrying, light and heavy combos, health and stamina, mana, and so on. There are some interesting details like stance swapping and the abilities to counter arrow fire or perform a sort of stop time effect on enemies, as well as throwing his staff and bringing it back like some sort of lightsaber force action. We see enemies in smaller groups at first, and eventually a mini-boss that's fighting Wukong with a twin blade lit on fire, which, after being defeated, Wukong is able to take on his form as a spell. So you collect transformations by defeating certain strong enemies and equipping said spell to be used as a transform. We see a different transformation occur as a giant warrior that takes on a bigger group of enemies at once with relative ease. It's almost like the answer to every situation could be a type of transformation. Then there's a final big boss for the trailer, a white beast that is an obvious boss battle. The basics of the combat we've seen are back, with dodging, parries, but using lots of different tricks, like pausing the boss midair again, or extending the staff to leap up and slam down from high, or, classically Wukong, generating a ton of illusions of himself to distract and open up attack opportunities. Eventually transforming into that fire warrior though, which is very effective against this flammable, bushy enemy. After the victory, we see this little montage of moments, environments, lots of different potential of the game. A Wukong themed Souls-like that's proven with this footage that the gameplay is genuine and the potential is there. But not long after this, we had this strange, much less real looking trailer in celebration of the Chinese New Year at the time. We saw this desert region with a bunch of new different enemy types, but compared to the first trailer, the gameplay was much less real looking, floaty, and the impact of the blows looked completely lacking. It made me less excited or even hopeful for the game. While it still displayed a bunch of different enemy types and even more interesting transformation moments, it just didn't feel like this gameplay was even real. It cut away constantly, there was no UI on screen, there was this ending with a huge giant bull humanoid as the final opponent, but then it just fades to black. So I don't know, it didn't impress me compared to the first trailer. The concepts were cool, but it felt way less real. At which point things went quiet for over a year, and some big changes happened that reinvigorated my interest for the game. We had this 12-minute gameplay test video showcasing that big step forward because the game was now on Unreal Engine 5 officially and featured proper actual gameplay again. We're in this massive icy landscape climbing a mountain, ending with this ridiculous actual battle against a white dragon with different spells on display and moment-to-moment combat. Visually though, this is a massive step forward from the previous trailers, that's for sure, but the basic combat stays the same. We're dealing with these frozen enemies that are sort of zombies ambushing you as you climb the mountain. The UI has had some changes, new symbol layouts, more minimal. There's a resource system being built up on the bottom right, these 3 yellow slots that fill up that power up the weapon. Best shown in this mini boss fight with a tricky monkey and a big sword, who actually feigns surrender at one point, which is pretty clever and pretty cool. There's more complicated attacks, we're seeing these kind of air slice projectiles, and actual humor to the fight as well. He tries to fart on you. The weight of the hits looks so much better here. There's real impact, both when you're being hit and the striking itself. We see new magical abilities, like this sort of shadow evade that occurs on a perfect evade, which seems to build up that yellow resource. When you build up 3 of those, he's able to expend it to buff up the weapon with fire element in this case. At one point, he uses this spell sort of a fire circle shield that makes him seemingly invulnerable, leading to a free heal opportunity. All of it feels much more real and functional, but it's not until we see that fight with the dragon that that the scale and spectacle shows off again. This is a lightning element dragon that hovers and floats around in the air, coming down to attack with tooth and claw, giving you opportunities to attack yourself. But it's best shown when Wukong sort of leaping or climbing up high to slam down to hit the head of the enemy, because you see actual stagger and reactions. As you hit it on the forehead, it makes a sound of pain and staggers just like it logically should. Something that really bothers me in games is when you land a hit that really should cause a reaction and it just doesn't. So it's nice to see that level of detail. The lightning attacks from the dragon come out pretty interestingly. We've got cones and lines that come forward that you've got to run away and evade, or the tail slams, that's the slam itself, and then an AoE explosion of lightning after. You can see it's genuine gameplay though, because the player misses a few times with their own big hits and gets hit a few times too in awkward ways that, you know, a pre-rendered or pre-planned trailer just wouldn't do. Eventually, after enough head strikes, an actual concuss stun occurs, bringing down the dragon for some nice DPS. Eventually the fight comes to its head though. The dragon goes on an incredible rage, torrents and beams of lightning smash everything, and the player just sort of climbs up their extended staff to an extreme height, which then gets smashed down above them at extreme range onto the dragon's head, bringing it down in a satisfying way. My question is, how much can you actually extend and change that staff in real gameplay? Then it's followed by another montage of, more genuine looking combat, lots of different scenes and enemies, proper boss fights, flexing the variety of both the strange humanoid creatures, but also this mythological setting. Looks like there's going to be a lot of variety. Next after that, about a year later, we got this interesting and unexpected full cinematic trailer that didn't feature Wukong at all. It was very character driven, with these ladies talking about an impending wedding, with some good humor to it. The characters are really expressive and detailed, but there's obvious mystery here, and the history of these characters is being referenced in a weird way. Spiders and webs are shown throughout, and the old lady, this matriarch, they tell the main character in the scene not to look at her directly. Things fade to black, and when we see this creepy looking giant spider that screams at you to get out in a familiar voice. So these enemies we fight, the big bosses and so on, they have genuine backstories that we might learn about before or maybe after we fight them, which is pretty interesting. So maybe as part of that story section, you'll be learning about these spider monsters and how they came to be. But after that cinematic trailer, we had silence for another full year until the latest trailer revealed at the recent Game Awards, which finally gave us a release date, officially coming in 2024 on the 20th of August. The platforms it's coming to will be PC, PlayStation 5, and the Xbox Series X and S. So it's 100% a next-gen game, and that certainly shows in the footage we've seen with the Unreal Engine. The problem with that new trailer is it didn't really show us any more raw gameplay. It was just another montage of moments and characters. Cool voice acting, music, lots of horrifying monsters to fight. There's a lantern head, a face stealer dude, this giant fighting bear, but also a giant spider. I'm not sure if it's the same one, but it's certainly horrifying. Randomly he's riding this giant bug, or maybe he's made himself tiny so he can ride it. We see the white dragon again, and then a giant turtle that seems to have an island on its back. So lots of different environments, bigger indicator of story and characters, and tons of spectacle. Reminding me a bit of like God of War, you know, those big scenes and big environments. So a great trailer to tide us over, but we did get some proper gameplay to look at in the demos. This is because people were able to play that demo at the recent Gamescom, although apparently the average wait time for the booth where you can play was 4 hours minimum. Different creators and press were able to play it though, and have made like reviews where they've not been able to show gameplay, but we did get like this full demo thing from IGN, so I'm showing that here. Apparently it's not going to be open world, rather big areas that you go through mission to mission. You experience different sections based on the story there, so you'll logically see stealth sections as well as just going from A to B, fighting enemies along the way, ending with a big boss battle. So it doesn't sound incredibly inspired or unique in its gameplay loop, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. It just needs to be a planned, solid experience per level, and if it's fun, what more can you ask? We do see in the new gameplay though that the UI has changed again. The power buttons are all on the bottom right now, including the stances, the yellow 3 slots to fill, but there's a new bar that fills, which seems to be filled to use for say strong heavy attacks. It makes sense though to have all of that down in one corner. You can just look down and get a gauge of where the cooldowns are, what your spells are, instead of looking bottom right, then bottom left, very separate. At the bottom left though, we do have these new consumables, which seem to be buffs that you use at certain times. In the general gameplay, we saw shrines you are going to activate, like bonfires in Souls, letting you rest, teleport, or set different abilities. We see that in combat, there's now health bars above the enemies, and interestingly, damage numbers to see what you're actually doing. Now, I'm not sure how you end up manipulating the staff in combat, but it does look like by doing default attacks, you build up that bar at the bottom left and then spend it for different power attacks, maybe extending the actual weapon. We see a basic equipment screen with raw defense and resilience stats, different equipment you're going to put on, and also a number that probably represented their version of Souls, which I believe is called Will. We see the player transform into that familiar fire guy, actually called the spell Red Tides. And in that, we get just a health bar and stamina bar, no mana bar at all. Attacking and getting hit consumes both health and stamina, which eventually, when emptied, will force you back out transformations. Later, the player actually collects a new transformation by defeating a mini-boss and unlocking Azure Dust, turning you into a big rock dude, which apparently makes you completely immune to statuses like burning and chill and poison and so on. Taking a hit while in that form grants you focus, which seems to be encouraged. So another form for a different purpose. I imagine in that one's case, you'd use it for getting through an area where there's lots of elements and status that you don't want to deal with. We do see it used later in a boss fight with the Stone Vanguard here, used to avoid taking a nasty hit right as they transform. It's slow and heavy hitting, very blunt damage, so probably good against a rock like that. With the defeat of this boss though, we see the level clear of Fright Cliff. From different reviews and the gameplay that I've seen, it seems like the gameplay rewards very high pace, aggressive choice. You're not actually able to block in this one, you're going to have to evade or use transformations or like special spell counters. Progression's a bit up in the air though. We've heard that there's going to be some kind of upgrade or talent system, but I've seen nothing of it. But I could imagine it might be more like Sekiro, where you're a specific set character and only have a certain amount of upgrades that you're going to end in basically the same way anyway. Though I've no idea. We do know you'll be unlocking new spells and types of attacks as you go, and managing your massive toolkit at a fast-paced mid-combat, that's probably where the core and skill of the gameplay will be. But yeah, that's pretty much all of the gameplay details that I've learned about this game from its original reveal to now. I'm definitely still very interested to actually get my hands on it, finally. This looks like a very unique Souls-like. And while it's had its ups and downs during the different reveals and trailers for me, I am left kind of uncertain if it will live up to the hype, which is pretty high. If it is satisfying to play and the pace is good though, I can't imagine it going too wrong, but it does look like the most unique Souls-like we've ever seen, and so a lot of people have really high hopes. For now though, I hope this video was useful or interesting to you. I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.